Stop. Before you drop that next penny into a jar or hand it over to a cashier, you need to look at what is in your palm right now. What if I told you that a tiny, dirty piece of copper, something most people literally step over on the sidewalk, could be the secret key to a life-changing fortune? This is not a dream. This is not a collector's fantasy. This is the raw, high-stakes reality of the American auction market happening this very second. Today on Coin Relave, we are diving deep into a world where a single cent is worth more than a luxury car, where a mistake made at the US Mint 80 years ago can turn an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight. We are talking about the Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that looks completely normal to the untrained eye, but to those who know the secrets, it is a golden ticket hiding in plain sight. Most people think pennies are worthless, a relic of the past that just takes up space. But they are dead wrong. While the world moves toward digital payments, smart collectors are quietly hunting through rolls, jars, and estate sales, looking for these silent giants. If you have a collection of 1940s wheat cents, do not move a muscle. Every second of this video is a masterclass in wealth discovery. One tiny mark, one specific year, or one metallurgical error can transform a 1-cent coin into a powerhouse of value. We are going to start with the holy grail of all errors, the coin that shouldn't even exist, and then we will look at the massive opportunities hiding in the more common years you likely have in your pocket right now. Grab your magnifying glass, take a deep breath, and let's reveal the treasures that the rest of the world is accidentally throwing away. 1943 copper Lincoln Wheat Penny. This is it. The legend. The coin that keeps every professional numismatist awake at night. To understand why this coin is worth a literal fortune, we have to go back to the height of World War II. 1943. America was fighting for its life, and every ounce of copper was needed for shell casings, wiring, and military equipment. The US Mint made a historic emergency decision. All pennies struck in 1943 would be made of zinc-coated steel instead of copper. They were supposed to look silver, they were supposed to be magnetic, and they were supposed to be the only pennies minted that year. But a catastrophic mistake happened. A few leftover copper planchets from 1942 were stuck in the hopper or trapped in the machinery, and when the 1943 dies came crashing down, they struck a handful of pennies in solid copper. They were never meant to be made. They were never meant to leave the mint. But they did. Today, an authentic 1943 copper wheat penny is the ultimate prize. In top condition, one of these is sold for a staggering $1.7 million. Even in lower grades, you are looking at a minimum of $100,000. But be warned, the market is flooded with fakes. People take the common 1943 steel pennies and plate them in copper to trick you. Here is the secret test, the magnet test. If your 1943 penny sticks to a magnet, it's steel and worth only a few cents. But if it does not stick, and it weighs exactly 3.11 grams, you have just found the rarest treasure in American history. Do not clean it. Do not rub it. The original patina is where the millions live. This coin is a ghost, a wartime error that survived 80 years of circulation, waiting for you to find it. 1941 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now, let's talk about a coin you are actually likely to find today. The 1941 Philadelphia Wheat Penny. In 1941, as the world stood on the brink of total war, the Philadelphia Mint was working at a fever pitch, churning out nearly 887 million of these cents. Because the mintage was so massive, most people assume they are junk. Oh, it's just a 1941 penny, they say, and they spend it. That is their first mistake, and it could be a very expensive one. You see, because these were minted in such high volume, the quality control was all over the place. While a circulated 1941 penny might only be worth 50 cents, a mint state example, one that still has that blazing, original orange-red copper luster, can skyrocket in value. We are talking about coins that have survived in jars for decades without ever being touched by human skin oils. Look closer at the date. 1941, with no letter below it. That no mint mark signifies the historic Philadelphia Mint. If you find one that looks brand new, with every single line in the wheat ears on the back sharp and crisp, you are looking at a coin that collectors will fight for in auctions. A 1941 penny in MS 67 red condition can sell for $5,000 or more. But wait, there's more. You need to hunt for the double die obverse error. Take your magnifying glass and look at the words, "In God We Trust," and the date. If you see a clear, distinct ghosting or doubling of the letters, you have hit the jackpot. These errors are rare. They are subtle, and they are worth thousands to specialized collectors. The 1941 penny isn't just common change. It is a high-grade investment hiding in the junk bins of the world. 1941. D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. When you see that tiny D below the date, everything changes. The Denver Mint in 1941 produced fewer coins than Philadelphia, and the D mark is a signal to collectors that they are looking at a piece of Western American history. While millions were made, finding one in a red, uncirculated state is surprisingly difficult. Most 1941 D pennies were spent on bread, milk, and bus fares, worn down until they were flat and brown. But if you find one that still has its original fire, you are holding money. Collectors are obsessed with the strike quality of Denver coins from this era. They look for full wheat lines, meaning the tiny horizontal lines on the wheat stalks on the back are 100% visible. If those lines are sharp and the coin is flawless, the price jumps from cents to hundreds of dollars instantly. But here is what the pros look for: the repunched mint mark. Because mint marks were punched by hand back then, sometimes the worker hit the D twice or at a slight angle. If you see a D over D or a D that looks like it has a shadow underneath it, do not let it go. These varieties are cataloged by experts, and they carry a massive premium. A 1941 D with a clear repunched mint mark in a high grade is a centerpiece for any serious Lincoln cent collection. It represents the human element of minting, a mistake that became a masterpiece. Check every D you find, because that one extra strike of the hammer could be worth your entire month's rent. 1941 S Lincoln Wheat Penny. Finally, we reach the San Francisco Mint, the S mint mark. San Francisco has always been the collector's mint because their production numbers are almost always the lowest. In 1941, they produced only about 92 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year 1956 was a monumental time in America. Elvis Presley was topping the charts. The interstate highway system was just beginning, and at the Denver Mint, millions of pennies were being struck to keep up with the booming economy. Among those millions, a specific set of coins was born with a genetic flaw that would make them legends decades later. The 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny is a coin that carries the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse, a design that was nearing the end of its run, as it would be replaced just 3 years later in 1959. This makes 1956 one of the final classic years of the wheat cent era. Now, when you look at a 1956 penny, the first thing you must do is flip it to the obverse and look directly under the date. If you see that small D, you know it was born in Denver. While Philadelphia minted over 400 million pennies that year without a mint mark, Denver was working at a feverish pace. It is this high-speed production that led to the RPM, or repunched mint mark error, which is the absolute holy grail for this specific year. Back in 1956, mint marks were still punched into the working dies by hand by human workers using a steel mallet and a punch. Imagine a worker in a loud, hot minting facility trying to perfectly align a tiny letter D on a curved steel die. Sometimes, the first strike wasn't deep enough, or the punch slipped. When the worker struck it a second time, the D would land in a slightly different position. This created the D over D error. When you look through your magnifying glass, you aren't looking for a blurry letter. You are looking for a clear, secondary shadow, or a vertical bar peeking out from behind the primary D. This isn't just a smudge. It is a three-dimensional mistake that collectors call a variety. While a standard, worn 1956 D penny might only be worth a few cents to a dollar, a confirmed RPM error in high grade can skyrocket in value. We have seen these coins hit prices of $250, $500, and even more depending on how dramatic the doubling is. But the D over D isn't the only thing that dictates the power of this coin. You have to look at the color. In the world of penny collecting, color is everything. A penny that has been sitting in a pocket for 70 years turns a dull, dark brown. Collectors call this bien, or brown. While these are historical, they aren't the big money makers. What you are hunting for is RD, or red luster. This is the original, mint-fresh glow the coin had the second it fell off the press in Denver. Because copper reacts with oxygen and moisture, finding a 1956 D penny that is still 95% red is incredibly rare. If you find a 1956 D that looks like it was minted yesterday, with sharp wheat lines on the back and no visible scratches, you are holding an uncirculated specimen. When you combine an uncirculated red condition with that D over D repunched mint mark, you aren't just looking at a penny anymore. You are looking at an asset that is appreciating in value every single day. Auction records show that the highest graded 1956 D pennies, those graded MS 67 red, can sell for over $7,000. Even if yours isn't a perfect 67, an MS 65 or MS 66 example is still a massive win. Most people make the fatal mistake of trying to clean their coins to make them look red. I cannot stress this enough. Never clean your 1956 D penny. If you use polish or even soap and water, you are stripping away the microscopic layers of metal that the grading services look for. A clean coin, no matter how rare the error, loses 90% of its value instantly. Collectors want original surfaces. They want to see the natural aging process. Even a brown 1956 D with a clear RPM is better than a shiny, polished fake. As we move further away from the 1950s, the supply of these coins in the wild is shrinking. Banks are recycling old coins, and the copper is being pulled out of circulation. This means the window to find a 1956 D RPM in your pocket change is closing. When you are sorting through your wheat cents, remember that the 1956 D is a survivor. It survived the transition of the 1950s. It survived the melting pots of the 1980s when copper prices spiked, and it has survived decades of being ignored. It is a piece of American history that weighs 3.11 grams and is made of 95% copper. Holding it is holding the craftsmanship of the Denver Mint. So, the next time you see that D under the date 1956, don't just toss it back into the jar. Take 5 minutes. Get a loupe or use your phone's zoom lens. Look for that shadow D. Look for that original red glow. Because at Coin Relave, we know that the smallest details lead to the biggest reveals. You might be just one penny away from a life-changing find. Keep hunting, keep searching, and never let a 1956 D pass through your hands without a second look. The market is exploding, the collectors are waiting, and the treasure is out there. Now, I want to give you a secret tip for 11 Labs to make this sound truly professional. Self-correction: no, I will strictly follow the optimization protocol in the final output. This coin is the ultimate sleeper hit of the 1950s. Make sure you check every single one, because the difference between 5 cents and $500 is just one tiny punch of a letter D. We have to start with the king of all errors, the 1943 copper Lincoln Wheat Penny. This is the coin that every professional hunter dreams of finding, and the one that makes coin dealers lose sleep. To understand why this coin is so dangerous to ignore, you have to go back to 1943 during the height of World War II. The United States military urgently needed copper for shell casings, ammunition, and radio wiring. To support the war effort, the U.S. Mint officially switched the composition of pennies from copper to zinc-coated steel. Because of this, almost every 1943 penny you find will be silver in color and magnetic. However, a catastrophic but beautiful mistake happened at the Mint. A few copper planchets, the blank metal discs, from the previous year were left stuck in the large bins or caught in the machinery. When the new 1943 dies began striking coins, those stray copper planchets were fed into the press. The result was a tiny handful of copper pennies dated 1943 that should never have existed. This coin is a silent fortune. An authentic 1943 copper penny is currently valued at anywhere from $100,000 to over $1.7 million, depending on its condition. It is the ultimate survivor of wartime America. But be warned, because of this massive value, many fakes exist. People take common 1943 steel pennies and coat them in copper to trick buyers. Here is the secret test. Use a magnet. If the coin sticks to the magnet, it is a common steel penny worth maybe 15 cents. But if it is dated 1943 and does not stick to a magnet, you have just discovered a treasure that could buy you a mansion. This coin weighs exactly 3.11 grams and possesses a rich, warm copper luster that cannot be faked. It is the most legendary error in U.S. history, and finding one is like winning the lottery without even buying a ticket. 1950 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. Next, we move to a coin that is much more likely to be sitting in your collection right now, the 1950 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. On the surface, this coin looks like a standard piece of mid-century currency. The Denver Mint produced over 334 million of these, which leads many people to assume they are just common junk. But that assumption is where most people lose money. While a heavily worn 1950 D might only be worth 15 to 20 cents, the real power lies in the grade and the varieties. Collectors are currently obsessed with red, uncirculated examples. If you find a 1950 D that still has its original, bright orange-red mint luster, meaning it looks like it was minted yesterday, its value jumps significantly. In the highest grades, like MS-67, these coins can sell for thousands of dollars at auction because so few survived 70 years without getting scratched or toned brown. But there is an even bigger secret hiding under the date. You must check the D mint mark very carefully. The 1950 D is famous for the re-punched mint mark error, or RPM. This happened when a mint worker punched the D into the die twice because the first strike was off-center or too light. If you look through a magnifying glass and see a ghost D or a shadow behind the main letter, you are holding a rare variety that collectors will pay a massive premium for. These RPM errors turn a common penny into a sought-after rarity. Furthermore, 1950 was a time of post-war economic boom, and these pennies were the workhorses of the American economy. Most were worn down to nothing, making high-grade survivors extremely rare. Never clean a 1950 D penny. The natural aging and the original red color are what drive the value. If you find one with a weirdly thick D or doubling on the date. Keep it safe, get it graded, and realize that you are holding a silent fortune that others are throwing away. 1909 SVDB Lincoln Wheat Penny. Finally, we have to talk about the holy grail of the regular wheat penny series, the 1909 SVDB. This is the coin that started it all. 1909 was the first year the Lincoln penny was introduced, replacing the Indian head penny. The designer, Victor David Brenner, was so proud of his work that he placed his initials VDB at the very bottom of the reverse side, between the wheat stalks. However, the public and the mint thought the initials were too prominent, so they were removed shortly after production began. This makes the VDB version extremely rare, but the version minted in San Francisco, marked with an S under the date, is the rarest of them all. Only 484,000 of these were ever made. Compare that to the hundreds of millions made in other years, and you realize how scarce this coin truly is. A 1909 SVDB in almost any condition is worth at least $700 to $1,000. But if you find one in high grade, with beautiful original surfaces, the price explodes to $5,000, $10,000, or even $50,000 at major auctions. This coin is a masterpiece of American art and history. Collectors call it the key date, because a collection is never complete without it. Look closely at the back of your 1909 pennies. If you see those three letters VDB and an S on the front, you have found the ultimate prize. The market for this coin is incredibly liquid, meaning you can sell it almost instantly for a high price because every serious collector in the world wants one.